Welcome everyone to the episode 3 of the Retmod Gaming Podcast. I'd just like to say a thank you to everyone that tuned in to last week's episode. Really appreciate the amount of viewership I got on that podcast. This week we're going to be talking about EA and what we can do to fix them for the next generation of consoles. What games we'd like to see. Basically, we're not going to get too much into the engine sort of thing, even though I think that the engine should be changed. But we'll get into that in a bit. We're going to start off talking about what EA can do to get back into the good graces of the gamers around the world. This is going to be tough. So, first off, they own the Star Wars franchise. And there's a game obviously coming in October called Fallen Jedi, which looks fantastic. We have gone over this before, so we're not going to spend too much time on this particular game. But there are teams within EA that could definitely produce some Star Wars games that we feel that could come out in the future. And the first one we're going to talk about is Need for Speed Underground Pod Racer. So what do you think of that idea then, Al?
I think it'd be very good, mate.
Yeah?
With the customization and everything else.
Absolutely.
It's an amalgamation of all different things, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where you could, like, we were discussing this earlier, where you could have the live action cutscenes intermingled with the racing and all that kind of stuff. It'd
exactly,
be really
yeah.
good, you know?
Yeah. I think, like as you just said, the last couple of Need for Speed games, they've not set the world on fire. So why not take the Star Wars franchise, not so much create a character, but a live action show, intermittent between each racing section, like a 6 to 9 hour experience with about 4 or 5 hours of in-game cutscenes. Pick your character, female, male, and tell a really good story of like a street urchin that has a connection to the Force and doesn't realise it. And you could throw in gangsters, bounty hunters, mob bosses, and it would be such a cool idea to take the Need for Speed franchise and go in that direction with Star Wars, considering they've got that license for the next 7 years.
With pod racing as well, it's obviously a very fast-paced thing.
Yeah.
You could set it up a bit like F-Zero.
Yeah, and one of the things that people liked about the prequels, and I mean, I'm not a prequel hater, I prefer the original, but was the pod racing scene was
the
fantastic.
pod racing's incredible,
so if you can, and we're not just saying pod racers in this, it could be anything like ships, just an amalgamation of different vehicles for you to drive, a bit like The Crew. I don't know if you played The Crew, where you could fly, speedboat, something similar to that, so you could have different races set across each of the more popular Star Wars locations and have a really cool intermittent story.
It's more
with that.
More Star Wars where they could flesh out more characters.
Yeah, give us more characters and bring some. So you could set it in at a time period of, I don't know, the obvious one would be between the episodes 4 and 5.
Yeah,
you know, between A New Hope and Empire. So you get to meet some of these characters that everyone's synonymous with. You know, I mean, you can imagine if you're running into you're say, I don't know, between the ages of like 17 and 20, and you're just starting to realise that you can do things that other drivers and other people can't do, other alien creatures people cannot do, but you don't know what it is, and then obviously you meet someone who can, take you through this journey, and I just think it would be an amazing story for Star Wars. Keep the Need for Speed moniker, Underground moniker, and then underneath in parentheses something like Pod Racer. Or Star Wars Street Racer or something like that. I just think it would be a cool idea for them to go in a totally different direction and, expand upon the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And the other...
I know we've had a pod racing game before, and it was one of the most well-received games of that generation on the N64, if I remember right. And
it was
PC.
a fantastic game.
Yeah,
they re-released it on... I think it's on these generations. It is on PS4 and Xbox. You can go and download it now. I think
so. Yeah.
I've got them on PS4 because I bought the
digital versions, didn't they?
I got the Darth Vader Collector's Edition, which came out with the first Battlefront, and there were 4 games on there. And I know Pod Racer, Bounty Hunter, Star Wars, and there was another one. I can't remember the other game. There was
Wasn't
4.
it the SNES Star Wars one?
Yeah, it was the Super Star Wars, which that's up there, and I can't remember the 4th game, but there was 4 games, and I can't remember. But yeah, I just think if really go into that, and EA could start off really good next gen with something along that lines, and the other game we're going to get into, which they've got a franchise that's super popular, and it angered a lot of people at, I think it was 2018's E3 when they demoed it on stage, and it turned out to be a mobile game which did not go down well with a lot of the fans, and that is Command and Conquer.
Yeah.
And again, this is the only other Star Wars connection I'd have with EA. I would take the Command and Conquer series, and I would, with the success of the Total War series that Creative and Sega have with that particular franchise, you could go Command and Conquer the Force Wars and set it between the Old Republic era, and you could have showcasing again a new fresh story, a new take, new characters, a license to do what you want. And it's a top-down Command and Conquer game set within the Star Wars The Old Republic universe called The Force Wars, which is an actual era of Star Wars set in the Old Republic. And again, you've got free reign then for writers to come up with their own characters, their own particular army units, and really go mental on that. And again, provide a really good story for people to get in there, because that Command and Conquer did not go down well.
Well, no, because it's predominantly a PC game. I know it was on consoles as well. It's been on consoles.
No, I'm
since
talking
PS1
about the
like
mobile announcement.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Oh,
it's the same with the Diablo effect, isn't it?
You could tell. I mean, I don't think console players were miffed that much because they hadn't got a Command and Conquer since the PS1, I think, when Red Alert come on that. Didn't Tiberian Wars come to maybe 360? I'm not sure. They didn't get many.
I think there was a Command and Conquer on
and there was a
360,
third-person action game as well.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into some third-person games in a minute, and this is why, after we've spoken about these for a bit, but it's a tricky one, Command and Conquer, because they could, again, this is another easy win for EA.
Yeah.
2 Star Wars games, 2 fresh takes, 2 fresh stories, and with pre-existing licenses that people are familiar with.
How long have they had the license now for Star Wars, EA?
2-3 years, and they've got it for 10 years, I believe.
Yeah. And
they're not going to give that up.
When you look at previous generations, the amount of Star Wars games that were coming out, and
under the Lucasfilm moniker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the original Xbox and how many games, Star Wars games, we got on the original Xbox and PS2.
PS2, Xbox, yeah. Well, not just that. Going back, Super Nintendo, NES, they just churned them out.
This is it.
Quite on a rapid. Even the PC games. I have most of the boxed PC games for the Star Wars, like X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, X-Wing, and all of the little
Again, another
the kiddie
game
versions,
they could do.
the Phantom Menace and stuff. They all come out. They're all boxed somewhere in the loft somewhere.
Could you imagine a modern day X-Wing versus TIE
Well,
Fighter?
Rogue Leader, Rogue Squadron. I mean, we've got a few on the Nintendo 64 there, the Battle for Naboo and games like that. I used to love the old CD game, Rebel Assault. Do you remember that with the FMV?
Yeah. Do you remember the top down?
Yeah.
The second mission.
Yeah, and the shooting gallery sections and
It
stuff.
was good to look at, but I hated it.
But yeah, it's again
The old quick shot joystick.
Yeah. I mean, it's just an easy win for EA.
Yeah.
You know, they need to get rid of this moniker of being the worst company out there. And obviously they make so much money off their FIFA franchises and Madden. People will continue to buy those regardless. And it looks like they've got another hit with Apex Legends, which again, keep those games. But if you really want to make money, I don't understand how they do not want to do this, because it's not even easy money. It's just something people would love.
Do you think with the Apex Legends, because that's a free-to-play game,
it's a free-to-play game, it's their version of Fortnite.
Do you think they may do that with the next Battlefront or something like that, and
we'll
do it as a free-to-play?
We'll get into Battlefield, where the direction I'd like them to go with Battlefield later on, because, we might go into that in a sec after this one. But again, Apex Legends stands on its own. It actually, for a time, I believe, was outperforming Fortnite when it comes
do think
as the
it
Battle
was
Royale.
For a while, yeah.
I don't know where these two stays. Like I said, we don't play either of them that much.
No.
But
I have toyed with the idea of playing Apex Legends, though, I've got to say.
Yeah.
It does look interesting.
Yeah, it looks good. I mean, again, for me, if there was a single player tacked onto it, I might have me more invested in the world, because then I do find that the older I've got, I need to be invested in it.
It's funny
itself.
how you can see that, like with Anthem being BioWare, and
yeah,
okay,
we'll get into
BioWare's supposed to be a separate company, but it's EA, isn't it?
It's all under EA, Motive, BioWare,
They've released
Criterion.
Two competing things at the same time, which seemed a bit strange to me at the time.
Yeah.
And you've watched Anthem sink.
Well, I mean, Anthem, we spoke about this, not a lot, but I tried Anthem on the day it came out, and there you could see the potential in there, the execution, and we'll get into why later on after we've discussed the games about the engine that the DICE engine that really does need to be. In fact, we'll get into that now because we spoke about the 2 Star Wars games we'd like to see for next gen. Well, we've got a third one. Actually, we'll carry on with that, but we'll go into the engine. The DICE engine was specifically made for first-person shooters. It was phenomenal when it first come on the scene for Bad Company and games like that back on the 360 era. The games I played that use it for third-person action-adventure games, they don't.
No.
For me, it does not suit the style of game they're trying to play. I really believe that. It looks gorgeous, the engine itself. It really does. Anthem is not an ugly game by any stretch of the means, and nor was Andromeda. The levels in Andromeda were great, but as an RPG engine, not for me. They need to, at the start of the next generation, have an RPG engine ready to go. They had one with the old Dragon Age Origins and the old Mass Effect games, which critically performed miles better than the new Mass Effect Andromeda. And we're not sure about Dragon Age 4 because Dragon Age 4...
You can go back to the original Mass Effect. The animations on the characters compared to Andromeda, it's night and day, and how much of a time difference is between that?
Again, I mean, it's just one of those things. I think that Dragon Age 4, I think it's the return of the Dreadwolf. So I'm not going to get into spoilers on that because that is a spoiler territory if you haven't played Dragon Age Inquisition. But again, when you look at... This will be the first game probably to use the DICE engine as a whole because Dragon Age Inquisition was cross-gen, wasn't it? It was 360, PS3,
360,
and then... So there was a bit of a hangover graphically from that game too. But I recently tried to play Inquisition and that was 2014's Game of the Year. And I know there wasn't much around in 2014 for it to... But because you had games like The Witcher, Horizon...
Well, again, like you say, it was the crossover time between PS4,
but that
PS3
game does not hold up well
Xbox
at all.
360.
I remember having much more fonder memories of playing Dragon Age Inquisition than I recently had playing the PC version not so long ago.
I've gone back to try and play it because I'd never played it.
It's actually
it's
archaic.
Very difficult to play that game once you've played The Witcher 3 and games
and
like
others like Horizon and even Days Gone and games like that.
Even Zelda.
Zelda Breath of the Wild. It's so difficult to go back to that game. And the Dragon Age Inquisition, there's so many glaring issues in that game. When you go back to it, every single location is the same, rinse and repeat. And at the time... And again, the stationary cutscenes, they had them in Dragon Age Origins, but they were animated so much more better with the different sections of voice options that you had available. Obviously, you had the spin wheel, which obviously carried over from Mass Effect in Dragon Age Inquisition. But in Origins, you look at Origins and then go to Dragon Age Inquisitions. It's not so much the character models, but the actual game world itself just felt grittier. And I hate that phrase because you can have colourful looking games that look good, and you don't need that gritty feel. But again, both of those previous generation games, Mass Effect and Andromeda, strangely enough, look better than the current gen counterparts. And it's a strange thing. And I do believe that's down to engine.
The stories as well.
Yeah.
The stories. Yeah. I don't know what's going on with them.
Yeah.
It's strange to see where you've had Mass Effect 1, 2 and 3. I know 3 had a lot of controversy with the ending.
3 was a fantastic game other than the ending.
Great game.
And I didn't mind the ending. I mean, what can you okay, this is my argument with people that moaned about the ending. And I get your gripes, everyone's got a right to do. But for me, it was an ending. I didn't like the ending per se, but that was what they give us at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not one of these people that should make developers change the artistic interpretation of what their game should end like. It's how they perceive the ending.
How they saw it, yeah.
It's their game.
Yeah.
But it's your story. You had all those decisions, and that was where the problems became apparent was, hold on, you've told us for the last 3 games, this is our Shepard, this is our story, and the ending did not reflect our choices.
Yeah.
But the ending was the end, and I just think that was what but they did go back and rectify it with, obviously, a patch for the ending, and then they brought out a DLC called the Citadel, which kind of wrapped up nicely people's story, the character stories in that. And with Dragon Age 4, they cannot... I know the director of Dragon Age 4 is quite outspoken politically, and obviously he leans one side, whether I'm not sure whether it's left or right, you can't quote me on that, but I know he's very politically charged, and I know during the year he caused a bit of controversy by saying, yes, Mass Effect will represent the current climate of politics, And I just sorry, Dragon Age 4 will will respect the current climate of politics, but it's always going to be skewed to one point of view, and you're going to upset one particular fan base over another. And I just think in-game politics is fine.
Yeah, if
create
it's
your
fantasy
worlds, because
and
Dragon
do the
Age
politics
dealt
through
with
that.
Dragon Age dealt with racism, homelessness, all these different topics which were very real in today's modern climate. But do not bring in modern politics. In-game politics is fine because it's your world. You can do what you like, but there's going to be quote unquote right-wing references, well, left-wing references, I suppose. And it's just, for me, it's not needed. People play games to escape from the reality of the world's issues. They don't want to see what they're watching on TV represented in a video game.
No.
So my advice, whatever it's worth to the director and the team over there, is to create a fantastic story, which is something they've never really had a problem with. They've got the talent. They've always had the talent to create and write. It's the execution that's been iffy the last couple of games. And so with Dragon Age, it's always been politically charged, but it's always made sense. Origins and those games, and Mass Effect, always made sense. And it wasn't on the nose. It was subtle, and you had to figure it out yourself. It gave you the questions. You figured the answers out by creating your own characters and deciding whether you wanted to go that way or that way. It's the same thing. Renegade Paragon. Do you want to be a a dick, or do you want to be a good person?
Yeah.
And that's as far as it should go. That's choice. Don't tell me what to think. Let me react to my own character.
Yeah.
That's my advice on Dragon Age 4.
100% agree with that, mate.
Yeah. And so we'll go into, we spoke about Dragon Age 4 a little bit there, and I am a little bit worried for Dragon Age 4.
I'm worried about the whole state of gaming at the moment, mate, to be honest with you.
Yeah, maybe. Not so. I'm not worried so much about that, the whole state of gaming.
know.
EA worries me.
I've got twitchy bum about Skyrim.
Yeah, well, Bethesda's...
that's for another topic, mate.
Yeah. Well, we'll get to that when Elder Scrolls 6 eventually gets shown off. But, yeah, I mean, Dragon Age, I did enjoy it in 20... I remember pumping 500 hours into that game.
Yeah,
and
you
really,
played that a lot.
I got everything in that game. And I
quit WoW for that game.
Yeah, but WoW keeps pulling you back. But damn you! They almost got me back this week.
Yeah, and we nearly shoved again, didn't we, mate?
Almost. I just got that rubber band on my wrist.
I'll get you a medal. 6 months clean.
Yeah. So I just think with Dragon Age 4, let's see where that goes. Just don't get too political. Create your own story. Create your own in-game politics. You can have some you can have some sort of Easter egg characters there if you want to make reference to Trump and whatever's happening in Britain and around the world politically. That's fine, but don't make it from real life to game. Do your own stuff.
Yeah.
Let the character think and choose the decisions based on the situations within the game. That would be because I've no doubt the world will look fantastic. The characters will be interesting as well. And that's one thing BioWare does still do good is the characters, and so it's one thing I liked about I did not like about Andromeda was I didn't like any of the characters.
They were very wooden, weren't they?
Boring.
There was no connection.
My Shepherd was just didn't, it was Ryder and the female and male Ryder and it's just like they weren't Shepherd. And I know that you shouldn't compare the two, but you can't help it.
You can't help it, can you?
Because you're coming off such a successful trilogy.
You're giving it that title of Mass Effect, you're immediately going to go to the name Shepherd, and that's,
And again, so we'll segue into...
When you look at what Andromeda should have been, I mean, they had so much potential with that game. So much potential.
That development was cursed because we saw it for 5 years previous, and then we had different directors, different beats here, different story things, and then all of a sudden it was shown in like 2016 E3, and you're like, oh, okay, it is a thing, it's real, it exists, and I don't understand why it took so long to get that out. But you could see the troubled history.
With all the different people that have been to work on it and whatnot, it shows in the game, doesn't it?
Yeah. So we'll see. It was a different Mass Effect team, and Casey Hudson did not work on that. And that's not a slant at the team that worked on Andromeda, because there were good parts of Andromeda. I do believe the world building, the driving mechanics were good, and I actually liked the combat. I thought the combat was excellent. The characters weren't interesting. The story for me was predictable and boring, and again, it was another slightly politically charged game, and I just don't think that's. You can have politics in the game that do represent today's culture, but you don't want it throughout the whole of the game, and you want it very subtly. Be clever about it, not on the nose about it. Don't make it so obvious that there's a reference to America's political climate, there's a reference to Britain, and I don't agree with it, so you're just going to play it. Let's give people a choice where they want to go politically within a game. Now that's choice, and that's a fantastic option, and everyone is happy. You'll get, well, I did this, I did that. It was not even a discussed game, Andromeda. Mass Effect, everyone, when you went out to the pubs, what did you do? What did you do? The bars, you were like, oh, did you do that? No, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Did you save that person? No, I saved the other person. Really? Did you save that particular race? No, I let them die. That's the discussion they need to get back to on those particular games. And again, here, another easy one for EA will segue into Mass Effect. Straight away, no mucking about. You come out on stage and say, or a direct, we'll go into how we feel the presentations at the end should go for EA moving forward. But again, we'll talk about what we want to see games first. Mass Effect Trilogy remastered for Xbox Scarlet, PlayStation 5 and PC. This has to happen because it will reinforce people's notion that Mass Effect is still a juggernaut of a franchise, even after the lukewarm reception of Andromeda. So what do you think about that? Do you think that's a search? Do you think, because, what do you think?
Oh, no, they have a very funny stand on doing remasters and things like that, don't they? It's one of those ones where they just don't seem to want to do anything like that.
Yeah,
but
go on.
With Mass Effect, it needs to be done to get the trust back of the players, I think.
And this is what we're saying.
For the Mass Effect franchise.
Exactly. And this is what we're saying, Al, about EA in general. They've got such an amazing portfolio of games that they could really just win gamers over.
Yeah.
Easy. Put me in charge, give me 2 years, and I'd have that company earning more money than them. Because I'd send to the teams. I know some of the teams might not want to work on these franchises because they are long-standing franchises. But are you seriously telling me you wouldn't get development talent out there that would not want to work on Star Wars, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, Command and Conquer, Need for Speed, Battlefield? Come on.
But it's like you said, like we've discussed it a little bit already, but people think of these franchises as one thing where, you could take a Mass Effect game and have a ship flying game where you're fighting in ships.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you said with Need for Speed and cross it with the pod racing game.
Yeah.
And things like that. It doesn't have to be what you're thinking in your head.
And
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's just they've got, like you said, all these great franchises, but they seem to just stick to the one genre with that franchise when they could just expand it so much.
This is why, under the Star Wars umbrella that they now have the license to, again, Need for Speed makes sense. Pod Race, Command and Conquer, Force Wars. These are my ideas, by the way, so if anything happens with these, I take credit, pin this podcast, and we'll get into another Star Wars game at the end, which is the one I really want to discuss, which I know you'll know which one I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And because that would be the final game I really would like them to go into. But Mass Effect, and then at the end, a little minute 30-second trailer of the next Mass Effect, something like Mass Effect Reignition or something like that. So it's just, this is a fresh take. It's a reboot. Here's your Commander Shepard back. Because obviously, how many times, spoilers for Mass Effect 2, I'm not. You should have been. Played that by now. But obviously, Shepard was brought back to life in that particular game by Cerberus. So come on, let's bring Shepard back. New engine for these particular games.
How good was the elusive man in that?
Oh, Martin Sheen.
Yeah, he's so good.
Commander Shepard. But the whole cast was so good.
Yeah, very good.
It was so good. And so I'm just thinking to myself that let's go back to winning ways with those particular franchises. Obviously, jury's out on Dragon Age, but Mass Effect needs to come back strong, definitely. And again, a minute and a half, here's a new PS5, Xbox Scarlet, PC, Mass Effect. I'll go with Ignition for now. You know, starting it up, revving it up. Let's get going again. CG trailer. I know we said we're not, but that's all it needs to be. Next E3, let's see your Mass Effect gameplay, and I'd move it off BioWare. I'd actually create a studio within EA for this. I'd actually go out there and I'd start looking for talent and writers now for this, because as much as I'd like to give the Andromeda team up, I think it was BioWare Edmonton that made that one.
Think so.
And I some of them probably do deserve a second chance on that game, because it did seem a rush development. They probably needed a lot more time on that game. I think EA just said, you've got to get something out. Casey Hudson's back now. So, you know, under Casey Hudson, new team, let's go from there with that. Yeah. And so so those are our impressions on Mass Effect, Dragon Age, and a few Star Wars. We have got one more Star Wars game to save at the end, which is what I'm really, really excited to talk about that. But Battlefield, I think I can safely say, mate, that I've had enough of the World War II and the modern shooters.
Yeah.
And I think that Battlefield should now go to... Oh, and by the way, before I say this, once Respawn's finished on this, I think Respawn should take over that particular military shooter once they finish with the Fallen Jedi. Respawn, because, you know, they're known for their Titanfall 2, which is an excellent game. Titanfall 2, if you haven't played that, I'd highly recommend that. The campaign,
so that's got the campaign in it as well,
and you can pick that game up for like £6.
Yeah, it's peanuts.
It's cheap, so $10-15 for you guys in America. But honestly, so yeah, going off that Battlefield, it's about time now we go back to the medieval age for Battlefield. Let's have a proper Battlefield on horseback.
Chivalry, mate.
Chivalry, knights.
Yeah.
You know, let's let's go for that particular era.
Yeah.
And let's go longbow, shortbow, crossbow,
yeah,
mace, flail, broadsword, short sword, daggers. Let's get in there and have a proper story set between, I don't know, the French and British in circa 1300 something of the war or the whatever. Let's just properly go at it and give DICE free rein to create multiplayer and single player. Battlefield. Again, you didn't even have to call it Battlefield 1. This is your Battlefield. In fact, that would be the moniker. This is your Battlefield. And then go.
Yeah.
Horseback straight away. And let's go, you know, let's have an army, Irish army, Scottish army, French army, Germanic army. Let's really go ham on the multiplayer. And let's have these different multiplayer.
You could imagine all the suits of armours and things like that you could put in it.
Yeah. Oh, mate, the
trebuchets
and everything.
And all the stuff you could do with the swords.
Oh, the castle sieges.
Could have crafting in it.
That could be around it. Like one of the maps is you taking a castle which is surrounded by water. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how they sold that, mate. Surprise mechanics. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, this is what I say. Fixing EA.
Yeah.
They need to get
again. The trust back
we'll
of the game
talk
as well.
about presentation towards the end of the podcast. How we feel they should move forward in terms of presenting it to us, the gamers and fans of their franchises. But at the moment with Battlefield, let's go full medieval.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I know it was. I don't think it was that much of a success, but they did the Hardline game with the police, and I liked that.
There was a game called SWAT that came out on Xbox 360, and it was very similar. And the same mechanic was used in that particular game.
Yeah.
With the badge, I believe.
Yeah.
So there was nothing revolutionary on that. But I mean, I enjoyed it. The story was forgetful, but I mean. And there were certain sections that were...
Like you, I'm just at the point now where I've...
Modern military shooters.
You think we've been playing it now, like the original Call of Duty? We've been hitting that for 25 years, something like that? 20 years?
Yeah.
It's just getting old now. There's only so many times you can go through games
I mean, I know it's... If you even wanted to go the fantasy route with the medieval, whack a few dragons in there.
Yeah.
You know, let's go full visionaries. You know,
mate.
let's just go off the chest and transform into animals and God knows whatever. Now I'm showing my age.
I was watching that yesterday.
Visionaries. God, it's awesome, that game.
The lion.
God, I used to love the summons off the totems.
Yeah.
All the bad guys used to get all the best stuff. I mean, it's just brilliant. That program was ace. Reboot that.
Yeah.
We'll have that.
Give us that again.
But yeah, I mean, Battlefield, I think it's right for, like you say, knights and
It needs
stuff
it
like
needs
that.
to change.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, Call of Duty have kind of stepped
Well, and
up
Battlefield.
with different things. It's
Call of Duty have
at
tried
least
to
they went
mix it up.
modern for a
Yeah.
bit, and they go back.
Well, they
and
go
whatnot,
back, but how many times are you going to do the Carentan Pass in World War Two or World War One?
Yeah.
How many times are you going to see the big red one in World War Two? That's not to say it shouldn't be shown, and it shouldn't be as a reminder for what the men and women went through in them particular eras. You get to you don't get to experience, but you get to maybe feel or get a sense of what it was maybe like.
Yeah.
But nothing could ever compare.
No.
And obviously visually or gameplay wise, you're playing a controller for God's sake, and hopefully nothing like that ever happens in the future. But but it's they don't do it historically. Call of Duty, it's very sometimes it can be, especially the bad and with Battlefield, it can be done in bad taste.
Yeah.
And if it's done in bad taste, it can leave a bad.
It's very sour, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly, and I think that's why they should stay away from the more recent war until it's not as sort of fresh. And that's not me being going, oh, you just don't want to. No, you can do. There's other things and there's other avenues for you to go down.
I mean, there's sci-fi, fantasy.
Sci-fi, fantasy.
You could have wizards.
Exactly. I mean, there's
so
Ubisoft
much
proved
they could do
with For Honor that they took existing warriors from different eras, Vikings, samurai, Chinese warriors and ninjas, and again chivalrous knights, and it played really well. It was really good.
I honestly
enjoyed
believe
it for the
if
time
that
I played
had had
it.
a huge campaign in it, that game
Yeah.
would have sold much more.
Much more, yeah. I think the problem is they come out on stage. I remember the guy because he was really memorable with
Yeah,
the
we
cane,
watched
wasn't
that,
it?
didn't we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was really guy. I forget
Yeah.
the guy's name, but he was really like, ha ha ha. He had this like laugh about him as if
Yeah.
to, this guy's psychotic, you know. and then he said, oh, it's going to have a story campaign, but it wasn't a story campaign. It was a very much a tacked on story campaign using the multiplayer maps, and I hate that in games when they use the multiplayer maps as your single player campaign situations. And I thought, nah, that's just cheapening the experience. But again, with Battlefield, I think definitely I'd love them to see him go that route with it, and definitely bring that franchise back to a winning return.
I mean, yeah, you could have just going for the multiplayer side of things. You could have castle sieges and stuff like that.
Exactly.
You know, and
Can you imagine the single player situations as well, not just like the story situations in that?
you could have the Monty Python sketch, couldn't you?
Yeah. The Knights of Nick. I'll still kill you. I've got no arms and legs.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
Your mother smelt the elderberries.
Killer rabbits.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So,
Get it done, EA. We want Holy Grail in a game. Get it sorted.
well, you say that, and again, you could even go further back there in the Templars and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and do the Jerusalem Wars and stuff, which maybe not so much in today's political climate.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, that's a good thing. We could definitely see them doing. And another franchise, we'll get onto that one now. We'll move into. They need a horror. They had a horror,
Well, there's an obvious one, isn't
and
there?
I loved it.
Obvious
And
one.
I'm going to say I loved all three. I don't care what people say about the third one. Still a good game for me. Dead Space. We mentioned this, I think, on the first podcast, was it?
Yeah.
Look, and I'm going to say it again. If there was ever any inspiration to bring that franchise back, look at what Capcom have done with Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 7. Two totally different games. One first person, one third person. Both worked phenomenally well.
Mm-hmm.
Come on. Again, new team, headed up by a new director. Let's get it going. Again, the gamers would love you for it. It was such a great franchise. The third one, okay. It went more action. Let's be honest here. Loot box, DLC. Well, not so much loot box, but, they went that direction with the
Surprise
multiplayer
mechanics.
aspect. Surprise mechanics.
Got to say it right now, mate. Surprise mechanics now.
Yeah. So, again, another easy win for EA here is Dead Space. I mean, did you play any of them, or did you... You're not really big on horror, are you?
I think I played the first one.
First one is special.
I think I played the first one.
Yeah.
Was the first one the thing with the eyeball?
No, that's the second one.
That's
Yeah.
I played
Spoilers.
some of that.
Yeah, that's at the end. Okay, spoilers for Dead Space 2, but I'm just going to talk about. I'll give you a couple of seconds. Yeah, the end of Dead Space 2 when he has to put the needle in his eye.
Yeah.
And the horrific scene, if you
remember that.
cock that up, was terrible.
Yeah.
That's terrible. I mean, I watch a lot of horror.
See, again, I've said before, I'm sick, and I found that quite funny.
Well, that's the thing. Horror games don't really during this year in October, and my sister-in-law will be doing a horror series. She hates horror, so obviously every week of October I'm going to pick 4 horror games and let's see how long she can last. It's going to be funny because I'm going to pick some horrific ones. Because I mean, it's just going to be great. I love horror games. They give you something that no other game does. I love different experiences, and horror is up there for me. As you go through satisfaction, you go through appreciation, you go through nervous tension, you go through scaredness, you go through, oh, I don't want to go through this, and then you go through utter relief, and a good horror game gives you that sense of security for a time being, and then it gets you again, and if they can nail that pacing right, which I think the first game got it spot on, the pacing of the first one. Yeah. As with Resident Evil 7 was great. You just had enough breathing room between each moment within the horror game, and that's what they need to nail with horror. It's not continual scare after scare after scare. Give the player a breather, let them relax, then hit them again. And not just with imagery, because it's easy to do. It's not easy to do imagery because I'm not even an artist, so I don't know. Some of these like Silent Hill games and that, when they come up with the imagery, you're like, oh my god, how do these people sleep at night? But it's like you're asking me to view it and I get uncomfortable, so what's in their head creating this is beyond me. But again, visual is still more as powerful as jump scares or jump situations. So if they can get the pacing right with a good horror, and Dead Space is right up there, definitely bring that franchise back, and that would be a win-win. No issues. Not a problem with that game whatsoever. That would sell a bucket load. Again, E3 coming up next year. Perfect time to announce Dead Space, reboot, and let's go. Again, easy win. Gamers would love your EA. Again, I'm available. You can hire me anytime you want. I'll be better than your previous CEO. Trust me. But yeah, again, these are not even hard to come up with. So. No. But again, we'll just come off this a little bit. The thing is, like we said though, mate, that they're not making games for us. They're making games for investors. For investors and shareholders and mobile games. Yeah. They want the loot box craze. But they don't get it. Sony's revenue doubled in 2018 through single player experiences alone. And again, that's what I've always said, going back to Sony, if they got their multiplayer games sorted and correct and had a few, they could put their again, EA, there's nothing wrong with you selling your loot boxes. Don't call them surprise boxes. Just own up what they are. Yeah. They are loot boxes. Come out and say they are gambling mechanics, and everyone will say, well, that's fine. We accept what you say they are. Don't try and squeeze around or manipulate the idea of surprise box. It makes you look like trash, and everyone perceives you as trash again, and your PR goes down again. Come out and say these particular multiplayer games will have loot boxes, but it's the content's there. The loot box is going to be skins, colour variations, sound effects, nothing that interferes with your gameplay or your unlocking of other stuff. I think that's the problem, isn't it? Is when you can get something that increases your advantage. I've never seen buying a box. The worst predatory that EA do is the FIFA Ultimate Team. Yeah. Those cards are a disgrace. Yeah. And they know kids of all ages will go to their parents and say, I want to buy another pack. I'll just put it like this into you, and I'm trying to get this out of my head for years with World of Warcraft. You do not own that account. No. All the money you have put in that account will eventually be shut down. Eventually World of Warcraft will be gone, and you'd have spent thousands for nothing in the real world. You'll have memories, but you own nothing. Loot boxes are worse than that. It's physical. It's like collecting trading card games and not having any sell-on value. Yeah. It's terrible, and it's manipulative, and it's shocking. Again, I don't want to get too much because it gets me really angry. I mean, you have kids. I don't yet. But I mean, mine ain't allowed near that exactly, sort of stuff. And for me, it's too young. Because would you rather them go? My eldest does play Ultimate Team, but he has to earn the coins and buy them like that. He's not allowed any money to. And the way they do this though with the coins, again, it's predatory. Yeah. Oh, you have to play for 30 hours before you can, or whatever it is. I haven't played a FIFA game for years. I refuse to because it's a patch. Every release is just a basic patch, and they want full price for it. Again, this is what sets EA down, and people will suck up EA. People will suck up FIFA. FIFA is FIFA. Worldwide, FIFA is huge. 240 million copies gross worldwide sold total. Same as Madden. They won't budge on them franchises, but they don't have to. But here's your other franchises that we're talking about now that can make you even more money.
Yeah.
Gamble, risk, make money. God of War was a gamble. It took an action game and created a third-person action game. An over-the-shoulder.
That's what I was saying
They
earlier.
took a
Think out the
gamble.
box and change genres.
Killzone.
Yeah.
Team Guerrilla took a gamble, created Horizon, most successful franchise they have. Uncharted, Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, took a gamble, created Nathan Drake, biggest franchise. You have to take gambles with your teams, and you have to be willing to say to the public, we're going to switch it up this year. Please, judge us when the game comes out what it is. People like new IP, but EA's got some phenomenal existing IP that they've just used in a bad way this generation.
Milked them.
Not so much milked them, but just the final product has been poor compared to...
It's just rushed out to get the money, isn't it?
Previous,
Yeah. And then you've got all these pre-order bonuses that they throw on the top.
Pre-order bonuses is not really their fault. That's the shops want pre-order.
It's industry standard now.
It's GameStop game. What can you give us to get people to come into our shops that will buy that particular copy in the shop?
But even digital now, mate, you've got 3, 4, sometimes even 5 variants of the same game on the levels of payment that you pay out.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Ubisoft, you're a disgrace.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's one.
5 different versions of Assassin's Creed.
Shadow of War, you had the bronze, silver and gold.
Oh, and you had that Ultimate Collector's, which is like 500 quid, which included the statue. I mean, come on. Again, some games will turn around to us two now complaining about it and go, well, you've got the choice. No, but it's setting a dangerous precedent for the future. That's why you can't have things like this happen. If you don't do anything about it now, or at least monetize the situation by fans taking a stance against this type of practice, then it becomes the norm, and it gets worse, and it gets worse till eventually it starts seeping into experiences you start to care about.
Yeah.
Then you'll start moaning. And then you'll be like maybe us to a certain degree where we go, come on.
Well, it's like going to the cinema, isn't it? Having 3 different versions of the same film.
Well, look at Avengers. They've got another version of Avengers coming out next week, which includes like 2 minutes of extra footage.
Yeah.
And all they want to do is beat Avatar's global record. And so, again, it's the same practice. And again, you have choice to go and see that. That's your choice. No one's telling you not to buy these ultimate packs. But if this becomes standard industry norm, your gaming experience will suffer in the long run. Because if they can find a cheaper way around things by cutting certain aspects out, Call of Duty, Black Ops 4,
no campaign whatsoever. Really bad.
Yeah.
And it showed.
Sales were down on that particular version. So let's just wind them in a little bit. Although we've gone through the games today and stuff.
Honestly, though, I honestly believe this is why retro gaming is getting as big as it is because people just want to put a game in a machine and play it.
Yeah, well, we've focused the last 3 weeks on modern. We are going to do retro gaming on this channel. We've got everything here. We just feel that these are the topics we're passionate about at this moment. And we've got plenty of retro games to talk about and things like this, so they will be coming, so bear with us on that. But again, we feel when we're in the moment of talking outside of this room that we want to discuss this. This is a topic we're quite passionate about because EA at one point, well,
you look at, we've got a lot of games in front of us here. If you just look at your PS2 collection now, and you look on the spine of how many have got EA written on them, there's loads. Absolutely loads of games there that have just got EA games. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like Lord of the Rings there, look.
Yep. Well, there's a franchise they lost.
They've got huge amounts of games, like Harry Potter.
So I just think
it's... It baffles the brain how they've produced so many great games over the years, and all of a sudden they've just...
Well, the Harry Potter games weren't great.
Well, no, but...
the Lord of the Rings games are good.
But
Battle for Middle-earth.
Yeah.
They did that RPG game as well. What was that one? Oh, God, that was a really good RPG, that game, where it was a bit like Final Fantasy, where you had a party of 3 or 4.
Was that the Conquest one?
No, that was the Battle... That was like a Battlefield game, Conquest. But anyway, again... yeah, like we said, these are just for me, my personal and Alex's personal feelings on this situation is that they've got easy wins in their locker,
Definitely.
especially with the licenses they've
I
got.
really think as well, EA as a company, they need to change their image.
Well, we'll get on to
Definitely.
that in a minute. I want to discuss one more game before we then move on to the final topic within this one, which is BioWare. I think the last game we're going to talk about is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Now, we've played the MMO persistently. I enjoy it. I like it as a story game. It's a good sequel to Sith Lords and the first
I think
game.
me and you differ slightly in that you prefer it now and I preferred it what it was at launch.
Yeah. I mean, I prefer it now because I play it like a single-player game.
Yeah.
And I actually think if you were to come into that game now off the street, play it free to play, download
You're
it.
not going to beat that for a story-driven game.
It is the best
It's
Star Wars
brilliant.
experience you can get. It really is. As an MMO, maybe not so good.
Mm.
You know, there are better games out there. Final Fantasy XIV and even World of Warcraft is still, in my opinion, even though I haven't played WoW for a while, I've played Star Wars and I still continue to play Star Wars, and objectively WoW is still the better MMO.
Yeah.
But it's, let's give us another BioWare team set on, they got the 5 years, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 3. RPG, full on, third person, on the new engine, which we said they need to create for these particular RPGs.
Well, we were discussing this earlier as well, weren't we? I do not find it hard at all to go back and play Knights of the Old Republic.
No, I'm just going through Jade Empire.
The gameplay on that and the way it's set up with the UI and everything else and the pause mechanics for the combat is fantastic.
Yep. Yeah.
Bring that back. It's just such a simple way of playing a game, but it works.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was just saying to you about an hour ago before we come live on here that Jade Empire still holds up today. That's a fantastic
Jade
story.
Empire.
That
Let's
is.
see why haven't we had more of
Another
that?
moniker, Jade Empire.
Absolutely incredible game.
Look at the world you could design with Jade Empire. Just check that. If you haven't checked those games out, they're on Xbox One X backwards compatibility.
Yeah, it's all enhanced as well,
4K,
isn't it?
whack them
Jade
in,
Empire.
say thank you if you've never played them again, because they are fantastic games.
Yeah,
They
brilliant.
deserve to be played, and they look even better now on your Xbox One S and Xbox One X. I don't know if it's 4K
I don't
on
think
the
it's
Xbox
on the
One
S. No, it's just
but they
on
are
the
on the
X.
Xbox One X, and if
Yeah.
definitely go and
They
go
run
back to
nice
those.
on the normal Xbox anyway, on the Xbox One.
Yeah, and so I'd love them to come back with that. Again, switch it up a little bit. You don't have to keep those mechanics, but just let's have 6 or several worlds for the characters to travel to. Create a character again. Throw some aliens in there. Let's just mix it up a little bit. Let's if you want to play as a Rhodian, let's mix it up. Come on, let's go crazy. 6 or several worlds, a fantastic storyline. Set it. I think the original was 4,000 years or 3,000 years before the events. Let's go 1,000 years before. Yeah. Time's moved on. New antagonist, new protagonist, new team of characters, and let's again.
Well, this is it. While you're out in the world as well, you can be exploring and discovering from previous games.
Yeah, definitely. And
little Easter eggs and things like that.
You could even link it to
do.
the Command and Conquer game, Force Wars.
Yeah.
You could even link it to.
This is where Star Wars comes into its own, where they could bring everything together.
Yeah, exactly.
Like we said with the pod racing, you could have a new set of characters that follow on into another game.
Yeah.
On a different genre.
Definitely.
There's so much they could do.
Yeah. I think that's something that we're passionate about for games in general, is that we just want to see them embrace what gamers want.
Yeah.
And I think this is, me and Alex discussing this today. It's not come up, it doesn't take long to come up with fresh ideas, or so they have talent there.
Well, you literally said to me this morning, I want to discuss EA. So the bulk of what we've talked about today is off the cuff this morning.
Yeah. I mean, it's inherent. It's inherently there. The feelings have been there for months about EA. It's just since I've got the platform, we've now got the platform to get these feelings out, and hopefully someone from EA maybe picks this up at some point. Who knows? And they just say, you know what? There's, it's just two passionate people talking about games, passionate about games, and I think EA could really just do a 180 here and go, start of the next generation. This is our calendar, we've messed up a few games. We apologise. We're not going to disband those games because they still have their player base. Anthem must have players out there, you know, and Andromeda's still got its fans. So you still have to take those into account and create games for those people as well. You can't just ignore the fans of those particular games. So again, it's tricky because you have to involve
It's like
both.
what you were saying earlier. Give us a choice.
Yeah.
If the choice is in the game,
Yeah.
you've made that choice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if there is a fan of Andromeda and their particular play style is in the game as a choice, and my particular play style is in the game as a choice, everybody's happy.
Yeah. I just think we'll move on to how we think they should proceed forward with how they present their games in the future. And I think EA's library and EA's particular presentations of late have been pretty, well, forgetful, shall we say. I think they should go the Nintendo Direct route. I think 4 times a year, every particular season, here's your update. Attend E3 as a floor space. Here's our games. Here's our E3 operatives on the floor ready to talk to you. Bring the YouTubers in and the journalists in as well from the gaming websites. Bring them in, bring them together. Get them more involved behind the scenes at EA. Get the media and the YouTubers on board to get your games out there in a positive way and say, look, they're really trying to correct what they've how they're perceived.
They've got to stop all the scummy practices.
They're not the only company that do this.
By no means are they the only company doing this.
We're not just.
They are the market leaders in it at the moment.
It's easy to single them out because it's EA. They're one of the big manufacturers, and that's why they should know better. They already make enough money,
but they don't because they're corporate.
Well, yeah, but
they've got to have all the money off everybody in all the world.
But again. They can have all the money if they get the experiences right.
Exactly.
They can have even more money.
Yeah.
That's my argument, that the experiences they're giving us are not good enough.
No.
Those experiences that we've talked about today, fans would love those. They get mental for those. If The Fallen Jedi proves to be a success, they'll get on a sequel straight away. If there is a sequel, we haven't played it yet, so we don't particularly know how that game's going to end. But again, the presentation-wise, less suits, more game, less predictive PR, less CEO on stage,
less cringe
with cringy, slimy smiles and all the rest of it. Get a front person on a direct, EA Direct, that really appeals to gamers. It's welcoming, passionate, and sends a message across that this is a new EA. Even change the logo. Really mix it up a little bit. Like, this is where we're going to go now. This is the new EA, you know? And again, we'll see where it goes. I think we'll call it there in a sec, but any final thoughts going into...
Yeah, I mean, when you look at all the companies, they've had exponential growth in the gaming industry as a whole. And at some point, that growth is going to stall and come back down, and I think they're reaching that point now, where they've hit we're coming to the end of a generation.
It always does when it comes to the end.
Exactly this, and they're panicking because they're not seeing as much money coming in.
Which is why it's imperative for them to get their experiences now sorted. Their slate of games set to release in next generation. Those games that I listed off. Personally, I think there's a gamer out there that would like two or three out of those 5 or 6 that we've mentioned. They're easy wins, you know. They're not, you know, they're just easy wins for gamers in general. So again, that's going to do it for today. We hope you enjoyed listening to what we've said. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See what you think. You know, let us know what you think EA should do. Could do in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out.
Yeah,
and we'll see you on next week's podcast. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye bye.